I find it quite hilarious that they would call people on the right fascist or Nazis and then go and do something like this. From the Daily Mail, trans activists burn Harry Potter books. J.K. Rowling ridicules Australian campaigner over video showing copy of The Goblet of Fire being torched as Brit women's rights protester Kelly J. Keane leaves Down Under after violent clashes. The video showed Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire being torched in a fire pit. Oh heavens! They've burned a book. You know what's funny? The Nazis were not accused of burning Harry Potter books. They were burning a lot of books that they believed were degenerate, and mostly were to get rid of the ideas. That's typically how it's framed. That there were ideas they didn't like, communism, degeneracy, etc., and they burned them. This is someone burning a fictional story having nothing to do with politics because they've decided later on in life they don't like the lady who wrote it. You know, I was thinking about the definition of woke recently, and we've been talking a lot about it. I'm like, this is a perfect example of wokeness. I'll give you an example of why woke is not a leftist theory thing. This is important stuff, right? Because you get a lot of people on the right being like, wokeness is defined by postmodernist theory and critical race theory and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no. None of those things. This is what woke is. Burning an old Harry Potter book because you hate a lady. Woke is, to a certain degree, things like diversity, equity, and inclusion. That I get, but understand this. Well, first, let me define it for you. Most of you know my definition. It is the modern left liberal culture created by algorithms on social media characterized by a cult-like adherence to tribal social orthodoxy, simply put. And the reason I can explain to you why that is in a couple ways. Let's talk about a left-wing individual, actual leftist who believes in leftist economic policy who is not woke. Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore's great. Jimmy Dore is like, I want universal health care and I think we should tax the rich and all that stuff. And I'm like, well, that's left economic policy, right? Except he's not woke. He's like, hey, those things are bad and those are dumb. The military industrial complex is lying to you. All these people are thieves. And I'm like, okay. Then you have people who are not leftist economically, but who are woke. People like, for the most part, you could say, Adam Kinzinger, kind of, these Republicans, someone like Joe Walsh. You get these former conservatives being like, I just think we should be fair and protect trans kids. And it's like, now, you're a conservative. Do you really believe that? Or is it modern left liberal culture, tribal, I should say, created by an algorithm characterized by cult-like adherence to tribal social orthodoxy? Another really good example is Ukraine war. Would you describe Ukraine war as being woke? I mean, not really, but why is it then that woke people are all in favor of it? If you are woke and you come out and you say you don't support Ukraine, they will mock you. But that has nothing to do with postmodernism. And then, of course, my favorite example, I can come out and tell you there is systemic racism in this way. In the 80s, we saw blockbusting and redlining finally come to a legal end, but those practices persisted. This created racial divisions in cities, namely Chicago and places like St. Louis, and many others, where people were forced into ghettos or couldn't sell their homes for the right value. And it is still to this day. There is a viral story of a black family that tried to sell their house and were given a quote of like, $500K. And then when they asked their white friend to act as the owner, it was appraised higher. I was talking to this woke activist several years ago. She owned property in New York. And I said, if a black family moved next to your property, would you sell? And she said, yes. And I'm like, now hold on there a minute. You're like an anti-racist activist. And she goes, yeah, but my investment would fall. It's not their fault. It's not my fault, but I'm not going to lose money. And I'm like, don't you get it? You are perpetuating that system. Now, just because these things are true doesn't mean I agree with any of their solutions. But here's the thing. I can literally come out on YouTube and say that, and they will call me far right and say, of course, I'm not woke. Thus, the definition should be clear. It's a cult. That's it. So insane is the cult, they will burn a Harry Potter book for its symbolism. Nothing is accomplished by doing it. These people are just in a cult. And Democrats cater to them. I want you to imagine this. You're standing up on a rooftop of a building, surrounded by zombies. And on one direction, you have a bunch of troops, and they're clearing out those zombies. And then up on top of that building, you say, those people, the military guys, are going to come and rescue us from the zombies. And then the other person looks at you and goes, actually, I kind of like the zombies better. The zombies are going to wipe everything out. Then I can do whatever I want after they've all been wiped out. I think the zombies should do their thing. And if I disguise myself as a zombie, I can move freely about and use the zombies as I see fit. That's what we're dealing with. Cleaning the streets, saving the city and country from the zombie horde, or putting on a zombie outfit and walking around going, I am also a zombie. Ooh. That's what they do. Granted, actual movie zombies aren't real. And I was watching World War Z recently, and the movies, basically, he injects himself with a terminal disease because the zombies won't try to infect you if you're terminal. And then they use that to make some kind of vaccine or something like that. I don't know. But there's a bunch of movies where they did it. Like in Shaun of the Dead, they're like, how come the zombies don't attack each other? So they start acting like zombies, and then the zombies leave them alone. Because zombies only go after people who don't look like zombies. That's the thing. You can be woke, but be capitalist, and they won't call you fart right. They won't call you. They'll as long as you agree. If you come out and you say, kids should get sex changes, but also you think there should be, more free market stuff, they'll say, well, I humbly disagree, sir. But do the opposite. Come out and be like, we need socialist government, and also no sex changes for kids. They'll be like, you're far right masquerading as a leftist, trying to. That's how it works. That's how the cult works. I want you to ask yourself this, and ask your friends and family. Are they going? You know what they're going to say? Look, there's a bunch of other books that have been burned, and they're going to say, oh, it's just one person. Who cares? So what? This is indicative of the behaviors that surround J.K. Rowling, who simply said women deserve rights. That's it. She said, I love and respect trans people and think females deserve spaces and rights as well. And they said, you bigot. No, they don't. It's funny because the end game of what's going on with all the trans rights stuff is ultimately going to be the removal of rights for women. Now, I personally want nothing but the best for transgender people. It's not like there's a whole lot of them. And I'm not saying to be mean. It's like it's a relatively rare phenomenon that gets a lot of attention. And I think the reason it does is because of the fear of social contagion. Because many of the people who are trans not because of some kind of biological function, but because of a social function. That just means we need to help these people. We need to make sure that if we're going to actually address this properly, we are not just being mean, nasty people to people who are suffering something. But that also means, and I think fair point, that we have to be serious and stern and set standards for which we will not accept. And that means if we have people who are going to throw bricks through windows, set fires, attack people, cancel people, etc., we cannot tolerate that. Listen, I don't want a mob of, online trolls on the right attacking trans people. And I don't want an online mob of leftists attacking families who are trying to say, I just want my kids to read math. I don't want them to read this stuff. I suppose only one thing you can do, though. Is get out of the cities, get some chickens, homeschool your kids, because whether it's burning books because you don't like J.K. Rowling, which is hilarious, or, I don't know, nuclear World War III, cities ain't safe places these days. So I got the heck out of there and went to a more rural area, moving to West Virginia, building up a new studio, trying to get away from the chaos because it's just not safe. But more importantly, whether it's safe or not is less relevant. Out in the country, you can be more self-sufficient. You know what I love doing? You go outside and there are chives everywhere. They just grow like weeds. And you grab a handful, you chop them up, you throw them in your food. We made meatballs, made them taste so good. Those chives, no joke. Made some cheese dip. I think I'll make some cheese dip today, in fact. And it's great. It's great. We have chickens. We have our own eggs. You can get animals. You can get away from the cities, get away from the cults. And I think that's how we de-radicalize people. Get people back to nature. Make them more self-sufficient. You got to chop your own wood to get a wood fireplace. You want to heat your home, save on gas bill? You got some wood outside? Cut up some wood. There's stuff. You get a fire pit. You want to cook? Get an outside brick oven, and you can use some wood from, and cook. Stop relying on these industries. What I find fascinating is that we used to be so much more self-sufficient, but now we're so reliant on massive industry and corporations. And there are so many things that we could do for ourselves we don't need. We don't need these big corporations for. Getting people back to nature will save them from the mind virus. It will make them more self-sufficient. It will lower their carbon footprint. Win, win, win for everybody. Let's do that. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up in a few minutes. Stick around, and I will see you all shortly.